In the summer of 2010, two girls, Emily Harper and Kayla Dawson, had just moved from their quiet rural town in northern Arkansas to the city of Austin, Texas. The two were cousins, born just a few months apart, and raised like sisters in a well-off farming family. Their grandfather had owned several acres of land, cattle, and had been one of the most respected landowners in their community. Emily and Kayla had always been inseparable, same school, same friends, and even graduated high school together. That year, both girls got accepted into the University of Texas and their families decided to rent them a small apartment close to campus, just a short drive from downtown Austin. At first, city life was overwhelming. The lights, the people, the freedom, it was all so different from the quiet fields they grew up in. Classes became secondary. The girls started going out more often, coffee shops, bars, late-night rides. By month 6, they had fully embraced the city lifestyle. And then, they disappeared. Cut to, early morning in a quiet, upscale suburb of Austin. A local produce vendor, Carlos Martinez, was doing his daily route pushing a wooden cart filled with fresh vegetables through a gated neighborhood filled with luxury homes. Most of the residents here rarely left their houses, retired couples, remote workers, wealthy transplants from out of state. Carlos knew them all. That morning, around 11:30 a.m., something caught his eye. There was a house, half-finished, black paint peeling off the siding. It looked abandoned. But what stood out most was the front door. It was wide open. Curious, Carlos pushed his cart to the curb and stepped toward the entrance. Maybe someone finally moved in, he thought. He stepped inside. Seconds later, a blood-curdling scream echoed down the street. Carlos stumbled out of the house, shaking, clutching his head, screaming for help. Neighbors poured out from their front doors, 6 or 7 of them, some in bathrobes, some barefoot, alarmed by the noise. They rushed to Carlos. "What's wrong? What happened?" Carlos stammered, "There are 2 girls, inside, they're dead." Within minutes, the entire street was on lockdown. Police swarmed the scene. Yellow tape, detectives, forensic teams, it was a full-scale emergency. Inside the dark, windowless shell of the abandoned villa, they found the bodies. 2 young women, no older than 20, bloodied and bruised, lying side by side. It was Emily and Kayla. At first glance, investigators thought this was the murder scene. But soon, the lead detective noticed something off. There was no blood trail, no struggle, no evidence of a fight. That house was just a dumping ground. Someone had killed them elsewhere, and brought them here. The villa had been abandoned for nearly 2 years. No electricity. No plumbing. No neighbors who would have noticed anything strange. The perfect place to hide a secret. Police brought in Carlos for questioning. Shaking, he told them everything. He'd passed by that house 100 times. "Nobody's been in that house for 2 years, he said. "I've always wondered what happened to the owners. But what they found inside was just the beginning." Carlos Martinez sat on the back of an ambulance, still pale and shaking. A paramedic handed him a bottle of water, but he barely touched it. A detective approached. "Tell me exactly what happened, Carlos." He took a deep breath. "I've been doing this route for years. I pass by that empty house all the time. Sometimes I peek in just to make sure nothing weird's going on. But today, I don't know what made me go inside. The door was open, I figured maybe someone was moving in. I stepped in, and there they were. 2 girls. Just lying there. I thought I was dreaming at first, I swear to God." He paused, voice cracking. But it was real. They were really dead. The detective nodded, then turned to the forensics team, who had just finished sealing off the house. By then, more officers were canvassing the neighborhood. They went door to door, asking residents if they'd seen anything suspicious in the past few nights: cars pulling up, strangers lurking, sounds in the night. Nothing. Most neighbors said the same thing. "We mind our own business around here. Nobody comes by that house. It's been empty for like 2 years now." Then they questioned the security guards assigned to patrol the gated community. Each section had a night watchman. One by one, the guards were interviewed. "No, sir," one of them said. "Didn't see any car parked there, not in the day or night. Nothing strange. If something had happened, we'd have noticed. That's our job." But the detectives weren't buying it. How could 2 bodies be dumped here, in the middle of a secure, camera-covered neighborhood, and nobody saw a thing? The working theory: whoever did this knew the area well. They likely waited until late at night, between 3 and 4 a.m., when the guards were exhausted and dozing off in their boots. That's when the killer made their move. When investigators examined the bodies, they found no form of ID. No wallets. No phones. Nothing. The girls had been stripped of any item that could reveal who they were. That left only one option: fingerprints. The bodies were sent to the state forensic lab. Tox screens were ordered. Investigators wanted to know: were they assaulted? Were they drugged? Were they already dead when they were brought here? 2 days passed. Then 3. Then 5. No one came forward. No missing persons report. No phone call from a frantic parent. Nothing. That's when things got stranger. Austin was a big city, but for 2 young women to vanish, and no one to notice? That didn't sit right with detectives. They rushed the fingerprint analysis. Finally, on day 6, results came back. Their names were Emily Harper and Kayla Dawson. Both 20 years old. Both from a small farming town in northern Arkansas. Cousins. Detectives immediately pulled up their last known address: a shared apartment not far from the University of Texas campus. Toxicology reports revealed something else: both girls had high levels of alcohol and traces of a dangerous synthetic drug, the kind often found in underground college parties. This changed everything. The girls had likely attended a party the night of their disappearance. Something had gone horribly wrong. Someone had panicked. Someone had decided to make them disappear. A team of detectives was dispatched to Arkansas to visit the girls' families. First stop, Emily's parents. When they knocked on the front door of a modest farmhouse, a man in his 50s opened up. Weathered face. Tired eyes. "Mr. Harper?" one of the officers asked. "Yes," he replied slowly. "We need to talk to you about your daughter, Emily." At the Harper farm in northern Arkansas, Emily's father stood frozen on the porch, still processing the words. That's my daughter, Emily," he said, voice trembling. "But Kayla, she's not mine. She's my brother's girl. We all live close, same land, same town." The officers nodded solemnly. "We need your brother here as well," one of them said. Minutes later, Kayla's father arrived in a rush, out of breath and panicked. He had heard from a neighbor that state police were at the Harpers. His eyes darted between the officers. "What happened? What's going on?" The lead detective didn't sugarcoat it. "We found your daughters," he said, voice low. "Both of them. In Austin. Inside an abandoned property." The 2 fathers went silent. Then came the screams, the tears, the disbelief. Neither man could process what they were hearing. The next morning, both families arrived in Austin, escorted to a local police precinct. The first stop, the morgue. When they saw the bodies of Emily and Kayla, everything stopped. The mothers wept uncontrollably. The fathers stood in stunned silence, barely able to stand. After the formal identification, the detectives began their questioning. When was the last time you spoke to your daughters? Emily's father spoke first. They moved to Austin to study at UT. We checked in every few days at first, called them, asked if they needed money, anything. Then it became less frequent. Sometimes a week or two would go by. Kayla's father added, they told us they were doing fine, studying hard, staying out of trouble. We trusted them. The officers nodded grimly. We need to tell you something, the lead detective said. We found traces of alcohol and synthetic drugs in both their systems. Also, the clothes they were wearing when they were found, they weren't typical college wear. They looked more like party outfits. The fathers exchanged worried glances. That's not how we raised them, one whispered. Detectives explained the cause of death. Emily had been stabbed in the neck, a deep, fatal cut. Kayla had multiple stab wounds to the back and abdomen. They were killed the same day, the detective said. Roughly the same time. Same method. Likely by the same person. Then came the hard question. Did either of you assign someone to check on the girls while they were living here? A friend? A relative? Anyone who knew where they went? Who they spent time with? The answer was no. They were 20. We trusted them. They were smart girls. Quiet, focused. We had no reason to worry. The officers then asked to be taken to the girls' apartment. A few hours later, the families and detectives arrived at a modest 3-story home in a quiet residential area, just walking distance from the university. The building had 3 units. The ground floor was rented by a group of working women. The 3rd floor was occupied by the landlord and his family. In the 2nd floor, the middle unit, that's where Emily and Kayla lived. The landlord met them outside, confused but cooperative. Oh, those 2 girls, he said. Yeah, they lived here. I haven't seen them in almost 3 weeks. Figured they went back home for a break or something. Can we take a look inside? The detective asked. The landlord hesitated. They changed the lock. I don't have a key. With that, the police obtained a warrant and broke the door open. What they found inside changed the entire direction of the case. The apartment was clean. Too clean. No sign of struggle. No blood. No broken furniture. But also, no electronics. No journals. No personal notes. Nothing. The place had been wiped. And it clearly wasn't the murder scene. Back at the house, the forensics team began to comb through every inch of the kitchen, then spread out to the bedrooms. Nothing seemed too suspicious at first. But then, one officer decided to check a strange little crawl space near the bathtub in the back bathroom, right under a loose floorboard. As he opened the tiny wooden door, he froze. Inside the dark compartment was a hidden stash. Stacks of $100 bills bundled tightly in zip bags. And next to them, gold. Lots of it. When they counted the cash, it totaled just over $150,000. The gold was worth at least as much. The detectives looked at each other in disbelief. These girls were still in college. Where the hell did they get all this? The cash and gold were sent to the evidence room, and the investigators made their way to visit the parents of Karina and Isabel. They asked a simple question. Did your daughters ever mention large amounts of money? Maybe gold? The parents were stunned. No. Not at all. We only helped them with rent and groceries. Maybe tuition sometimes, but nothing more. And we sure never gave them any gold. That confirmed the detective's suspicions. These girls weren't just students. Something else was going on. Back at the apartment complex, detectives asked the landlord to come down to the precinct. Listen, the sergeant told him. We found Karina and Isabel. They're both dead. Now tell us everything you know about what went on in that apartment. The man went pale. He slumped into the chair. His voice was shaky. At first, they were quiet, real polite. Just students. They'd come and go, kept to themselves. He continued. But after a couple months, I started noticing they'd come home really late. Like 2, 3 in the morning. And sometimes, they weren't alone. Guys? Girls? The sergeant asked. Could be either. Never saw their faces clearly. I kept my distance. I'm a married man, got my own family. Just rented them the place and didn't ask questions. Were they gone on weekends? Yeah. Fridays to Sundays sometimes, they'd disappear. The police decided to question the neighbors downstairs, the 2 girls who lived in the unit below. When asked, they said, we barely knew them. Just high and by. But yeah, they came home late. You'd hear the door open at 2 a.m., sometimes later. They were barely home on weekends. Ever see anyone drop them off? Anyone suspicious? No, nothing like that. They were private. Never caused trouble. With few leads left, the detectives turned their attention to the one place the girls were supposed to be, college. They drove down to Westfield Community College and checked their enrollment records. Both girls were listed as full-time students. But when they visited the classrooms, one of the professors said, they haven't shown up in over 2 months. And several classmates said the same. We haven't seen Karina or Isabel in forever. Now it was clear. These girls had stopped going to college long before they were found dead. But then, a month went by. It was December. No one had seen the girls. The neighbors started to ask questions, but no one had answers. People assumed they had maybe gone back home, wherever that was. Just vanished. That's what everyone thought, until the cops started digging. Detectives zeroed in on the girls' closest contacts. There were a few girls who had gotten particularly close with both Karina and Isabel. The police rounded up 3 of them and brought them in for questioning. Did you ever see Karina or Isabel with someone suspicious? Did anyone ever approach them outside campus? Did they mention anyone strange? At first, the girls hesitated, but one finally spoke up. I remember one afternoon, she said. We had just finished class. We were walking out of campus, heading toward the construction site shortcut. This woman in a white SUV pulled up. She looked older, maybe in her 40s. Karina and Isabel seemed to recognize her. They got in the car. I thought she might be their aunt or something. That's all I know. That detail, the white SUV and the older woman, caught the detective's attention. They went straight to both families. Do either of you know a woman in her 40s who drives a white SUV? The answer was unanimous, no. No one from the family, no extended relatives, no neighbors fit that description. And that's when suspicions locked in. The mysterious woman in the white SUV might be the key. Detectives pulled the girls' phone records. While both phones were off the grid, they still had access to call histories. One number kept coming up. A number that wasn't tied to either of the families, not a friend, not a teacher, not a coworker. Just a number. They ran the number through the telecom company. It was registered to a woman named Fatima Gonzalez, age 44, living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Now things got even weirder. Fatima had been calling Karina and Isabel 3 to 4 times a day, sometimes even more. More than their own parents. Why? What was she so interested in? The police didn't want to spook her, they were afraid she'd run if they showed up too fast. So they did their homework. They tracked her address to a villa-style house on the outskirts of Santa Fe and staked it out. Hours went by. No movement. Eventually, a man, likely a housekeeper or groundskeeper, came out. The officers approached him. "We're police. Is Miss Fatima Gonzalez home?" The man hesitated. He looked pale. Nervous. Yeah. She's inside. I'll get her." When Fatima finally came to the door, the officers noticed it immediately. She was sweating, shaky, fidgeting. Her fear wasn't normal. It wasn't confused or casual. It was guilt-ridden. "Ma'am," one officer said. "We need to speak with you inside." She reluctantly let them in. As they entered, the detectives did a quick scan of the property. No sign of the white SUV outside. Nothing in the driveway. Inside, the house was spotless, except for one living room. That room was a mess. The rest of the house looked staged for a magazine photo shoot, but this room looked like it had been hastily cleaned after something bad happened. The floor had been scrubbed raw, the furniture moved oddly, and one section of the carpet was clearly newer than the rest. Experienced investigators know what that means. When a crime happens, especially a violent one, the cleanup is never perfect. There's always a trail. So they laid it out. "Fatima," the officer said. "We know about the calls. We know about the SUV. And we know what this room used to look like." She shook her head. "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have an SUV. I've never seen those girls before." But her voice cracked. And they knew she was lying. Back at the crime lab, the detectives analyzed every item collected from the house, including the white SUV and especially the large rug. The forensic team ran it through luminol testing. Blood traces lit up. They weren't just random spots. DNA confirmed the samples matched both victims, Emily and Kayla. The rug had been scrubbed hard, probably with bleach, but it was too late. Blood leaves a story behind, and this one was screaming murder. Investigators immediately went back to the house and arrested Fatima on the spot for obstruction and giving false information. She was taken downtown for questioning. At first, she played the victim. "I don't know those girls. I'm just a quiet lady. I was cleaning my living room, that's all," she sobbed. But detectives weren't buying it. The lab results had already painted a different picture. Once she realized the game was up, Fatima broke down. "Okay. I'll tell you everything." She described how she used to go to a local cafe, just to relax alone. That's where she first noticed Emily and Kayla, young, beautiful, full of life. She approached them, introduced herself, asked if she could join them. They welcomed her kindly. That was the start. Fatima started spending more time with them. She paid for their drinks, laughed with them, offered to cover their meals. Eventually, she even gave them gifts, phones, clothes, and sometimes cash. The girls were flattered, but confused. Why was this woman being so generous? Then came the invitations. "Come hang out at my place," she'd say. "Just us girls. No drinking, no drugs, just fun. But when they arrived, the vibe was different. Loud music, alcohol, strange people, men and women. And Fatima? She'd pressure them to loosen up, drink more, party harder. It became a weekly thing. Then one night, as they were sitting together, Fatima confessed something that chilled them: "I like women. I'm not into men." Emily and Kayla froze. Fatima assured them she meant no harm. "You can stay here, I'll take care of you. I'll give you money, anything you want. Just stay with me." And she did. She handed them over $6,000 that same night. Jewelry too. Emily and Kayla were shocked, but they didn't walk away. They promised to keep her secret, and kept coming back. But soon, they made a request: stop inviting others. No more guys, no more girls. Just us. Fatima agreed. The partying continued. Drugs, booze, laughter. Week after week. Until that one night. Fatima passed out after drinking too much. When she woke up the next morning, the house was quiet. She made her coffee, cleaned up the mess from the night before, and went to her safe to check her money. Gone. Cash, gold, everything, stolen. The only ones who had been there: Emily and Kayla. She felt betrayed. The girls she had trusted, loved, cared for. They had used her. But Fatima wasn't stupid. She knew they might never come back. So, she stayed calm, acted like nothing happened. She had a plan. The next time they called, she greeted them like everything was normal. The next day, Fatima called Emily and Kayla to her house, inviting them to a casual get-together. She spoke calmly, no mention of money, no threats, just an ordinary night. The girls felt safe and decided to go. But beneath the surface, everything was about to spiral out of control. Soon, Fatima's tone shifted. She demanded her money and gold back, the loans she had given them, the ones they never expected to repay. Tensions flared, and the girls denied everything. Fatima's anger boiled over, and suddenly, the peaceful gathering turned into a nightmare. In a fit of rage, Fatima shoved Emily hard. Emily fell, hitting her head on the table. Blood started pooling, a terrifying sight. Panic erupted. Kayla rushed to help, but Fatima grabbed a knife from the table. The room plunged into chaos. Fatima's attacks were savage and merciless. She stabbed again and again, turning the night into a bloodbath. Ibtisam tried to stop her, but the violence was unstoppable. Emily lay lifeless on the floor, while Kayla was left fighting for her life. When the neighbors heard the screams, the police were called. Fatima, desperate and terrified, tried to cover her tracks. She and an accomplice loaded the bodies into a white car and dumped them in an abandoned garage near the villa. Then, she returned home as if nothing had happened. But the truth never stays buried. The police discovered the white car hidden in a dark garage. Blood stains on a rug in the villa linked Fatima directly to the crime scene. When questioned, she cracked under pressure and confessed. The court found Fatima guilty of murder, sentencing her to life imprisonment without parole. Her accomplices received the same fate. This chilling case shows how greed, betrayal, and desperation can lead to the darkest of deeds, and how justice will ultimately find its way.